All right. Good day. Good day. It's noon, so it's not morning. I almost did the good morning thing, so we're not going to do that. Good day. Welcome to the HEF podcast. It's the podcast of the Home Education Foundation. Home Education Foundation is an organization dedicated to lobbying for parents' rights to educate their children as they see fit and protect those rights from infringement and onerous restrictions that may be placed upon them. Home education is kind of that cornerstone of quintessential freedom, that land of the free, that beautiful homeschool classroom with no walls where the world is your classroom, and we want to make sure everyone has access to it so that parents can direct the education of their children however they see fit and tailor that educational experience to their own children and grow and nurture them the ways that they feel with priorities that match what they decide. And without further ado, we will tell all of our top sponsors and title sponsor this year, thank you. Thank you for being with us on this journey. What you do and how you support us is immensely important, and we welcome you being arm in arm with us as we do this. We have both the Home Education Foundation as a lobbying organization, and we have HEF Connect as our nonprofit arm, which is heavily focused on the growth of success opportunities in life in a post-K-12 environment. So really that place beyond education where your children can hit the ground running and find success, whether it's in trades, or certifications, or just alternative paths to being successful in life through entrepreneurship or any of those other routes. Sometimes parents don't want their children to go to college, or sometimes kids don't want to go to college. They look at the debt. I know that as a kid I looked at the debt, and that was one of the reasons I almost didn't go back and get my bachelor's. And a philanthropic man from the small town that I grew up in encouraged me to go back by offering to help me for the cost, and that was awesome. But unless you lived in that same small town in Alabama, maybe you didn't get to benefit from someone who took you under his wing like that. And I still don't know why me, but I was very appreciative, even though I didn't really find much use for my college degree. As sad as it is, it was still a decent experience. But a lot of kids are looking at that and thinking, "Man, I can go elsewhere," and they try. And we want to make sure that they know about all the opportunities, because there are literally a ton of opportunities at their disposal that they can connect with. And you'll see more of that kind of open up in the opportunities part of our website, where all of those opportunities are going to find a home there, where you can connect with people who have mentorship programs and apprentice programs. And as we continue to pull that focus to the front, you'll see that kind of growth little by little emerge there. That section was a bit infantile when we first put it there as a placeholder, because we needed to make some shifts in general from a big picture standpoint, but we needed all the kind of itty-bitty gear pieces to kind of line up so that we could start talking about them. And it's like before you start talking about something, you need a place for it to go. So little by little, we're building it as we fly it. And Brenda has been working on a lot of these relationships for decades, actually. And a lot of them come to us through all of the work that she's done lobbying historically in the past. People see us as that focal point and those go-to people, so they do come to us and then say, "Hey, how do we connect with the homeschool community?" And we're so glad you asked, because now we have a way. And I hope if there are any people who are watching this that are not homeschoolers, think about it. Look at the world and take a 30,000-foot step back. We tend to trust systems, and for whatever reason, I think generationally, that's what grandma knew, that's what mom knew, that's what we know, and we just kind of accept that as the given. But truthfully, the world is open to you. You can Lewis and Clark that thing, and go where you want and do what you want. And if you can make it work, who gets to second guess you? So it's really just about finding a path to success. And that path can be as unique as you are. Everybody here is different, and they're interested in different things and in various combinations. And I remember hearing people say to this one client that I do marketing, so I was looking at them, and they were trying to launch a game, a board game, a tabletop game, and people were like, "Oh no, that's not going to work. There's already this, there's already that." And lo and behold, we've watched, I think five really good like mega buster games, tabletop games launch since people were Debbie Downers over that topic, and they've made bukus of money on Kickstarter and all kinds of other things. So those paths to success, they do exist, and sometimes you have to break the mold, and that might mean from the very beginning, that educational experience of how you raise your kids, breaking the mold, starting there. And if you're adventurous, or you're interested, or you're scared, and you want options, but you don't know where to start with the Home Education Foundation's community. We have a live forum, so the flhef.org. We have a forum there. There are veteran homeschoolers in Florida. These are people all in Florida, so we work in Florida, and they're there, ready and willing to get involved and to help and to offer advice. Some people even are willing to throw curriculum at you to let you try it, and like there's all kinds of ways to do it no cost. There's also a scholarship that is available called the PEP Scholarship, or the Personalized Education Program, and it is available to help you if you feel like you really need that to get going. I know that when we started home education, it was a choice of conviction, not convenience, and so we weren't really concerned whether or not we had any money to do it. We were just going to teach our children what we know, and then try little by little to give them access to more. And with YouTube and all of the worksheets and things that you can buy on Amazon, and like there's so much, but if you don't know any of that, it's just a big scary unknown. So if you're curious, dive into our community and connect with some of these veteran homeschoolers and get attached to some local groups and really kind of branch out and enjoy that. And I encourage you to exercise those freedoms that you have available for you. So Florida's a unique state. A lot of people are watching Florida for what we do. Brenda has worked tirelessly. Let me say tirelessly, because this might being my first year in, I'm getting to see so much of what she's
tired of the tirelessly. He's experiencing that.
Yes, it is not lost on me that your stamina is immense, Brenda. You have done this for decades, and it's a bit thankless. I know how much goes behind the scenes that no one knows about, even those who are close, who are so supportive. They don't always fully get the entrenchment of the battles and all the nuances. I'm so glad to have their support, but I do understand that cross you've been bearing, and it's definitely something that I hope everyone can appreciate throughout our state. So that being said,
take a breath.
Yeah. Does somebody else want to talk for a second? I'm not a Disney villain.
I want to go back to some of the things that you've said, but we need to recognize our top sponsors. I think we didn't start off with that.
We did, yeah, we did.
He had it up on the screen.
I had it up on the screen.
Was I sleeping during that part? I'm so sorry.
Well, my Disney villain monologue might have put you to sleep.
No, I think he put it on the screen, but then instead of what he usually says, he went off talking about the career opportunities. But they were up on the screen.
They were up for a long time.
I can't see your screen, so I don't know what you're showing people. Well, let me go back to what you said. First of all, in Alabama, you didn't have the Bright Future Scholarship. So you had to rely on a private donor, but Florida students who are home educated have the same opportunities with less requirements than public school and private school students have to have their college tuition and books and fees paid for. And the beauty of home education is they can start that in about 10th grade. Depends on the community college, but they can do dual enrollment. Mm-hmm. So if your child is bored with high school and feels like he can move on, Jason, I think you fell in that category. If you had been in Florida, you could have already had half of your college out of the way by the time you finished high school.
That's awesome.
So it's an amazing state for parents to have all of the opportunities that we have. And then for new parents, they're always afraid. And the first year, they always bring school home. Yeah. So we got to sit at a desk. We got to do our work between 8 and 5, because those are 8 and 3, because those are the magic hours.
That's right. The Industrial Revolution time clock.
Yeah. So, but we have, for parents that are afraid they're going to miss something, we have the Florida Virtual School, which I helped create back in the day of 1996 and 97. It was the first virtual school. It's now a recognized school district, and it provides all kinds of courses for your child, which are paid for out of the PEP scholarship. They're one of the vendors on the what do you call it, Crystal?
Oh,
provider list.
Yeah, they're in the provider shop.
Mm-hmm.
So, but if you don't want to take the core courses, and most of the parents are afraid, and the reason we did this was there were a lot of kids falling through the cracks, and in the rural districts, they didn't have enough kids to do AP courses. They didn't have opportunities like you have in the larger districts. So we created the courses that they would need. And I tell you, when I first saw them launch it, the different courses, homeschoolers were the beta testers for all the courses, because the public schools wouldn't allow their kids to do Florida Virtual. So we got to see some of the launching, and physics was so fascinating. Of course, I love science and math. So that physics was so exciting. I really wanted to go back and take a physics course. I mean, home experiments and things like that. And it just came alive. So the courses were very exciting. And I know that some parents that I've come in contact just recently, they like the idea of homeschool and the flexibility of home education, but they're so afraid their kids are going to miss something. And so for that first year, especially, Florida Virtual provides in their Flex program the opportunity for parents to pick up whatever they don't have. And it's aligned with the public schools. So if then the parents feel like, well, I can't do this, they can go back into the public school, and they're right on track with the others.
Yeah, that's a really good suggestion.
To interrupt real quick, something similar to that, that's not historical, it's actually current, that you and I have been working on. Julie says, a great discussion in Brevard last week with 3 sessions with Matt Susan at Brevard County School Board. Plans to open up, quote, pay to participate, in quote, in more classes. Even gifted and elementary will be included. Options for groups of older homeschoolers to, quote, hire teachers to teach homeschooled students. Example, 15 to 30 students, a homeschool class for chemistry or AP. That's interesting, because we have been working on that. That's what had been one of our big gripes, actually, is all the news articles talking about how parents are spending the PEP funds on theme parks and this and that. Meanwhile, the school districts were actually fighting, adopting, being able to use the scholarship funds in their districts at schools. Things like, oh, we don't want to serve those students, or we're not required to serve those students, etc. And we've been pushing back for months and hopping on calls with every district home education office and working with the DOE. Shout out to Matt Emerson and Kathy Russell and many others who have been working with us to kind of help guide, influence, and impact this process as we go. And Brevard is one of the ones that's becoming an early adopter for this. And they're also been working with Step Up for Students, so shout out to their legal department and many others there who are thought leaders, and the calls that we're on with them on a monthly basis to kind of figure out where they're at, where they're going, and how we serve homeschoolers across the state better, especially when you're in one of those places. And my mom was one of those people who struggled with chemistry, and I'm not sure I want to tell this story, but I found my way through chemistry. yeah, I just kind of faked it, and mom didn't know. And so it was one of those things I'm not proud of. I was a child. Um, but I would have benefited heavily from being able to just go to a school, take take chemistry rather, and then leave, and be able to be free to move about the rest of my home education experience, kind of with the other plans that we had going on, because that would have been hugely impactful, and that would have given my mom a lot of peace of mind.
I just want to add to the discussion, since we're addressing people who are maybe new to homeschooling and looking for a little bit of help and structure for that first year. If you don't want to do something at the public school, there are also in Florida so many co-op programs, class programs. Those are called home education instructional programs, but they're
Yes.
businesses that provide classes for homeschoolers. I used to direct one, and they're amazing resources, and that's exactly what they're for, is if you don't feel equipped to teach algebra 2 or chemistry, or you just want your kids to take, I mean, some subjects are better in a group setting. They really are. And so you can find those programs that provide classes specifically for homeschoolers. And a lot of them are qualified for scholarship funds if you do have PEP and you're wanting to use that.
Sure.
So, and also, I just want to give a shout out to FPEA, because if you're new to homeschooling and you're just kind of wanting to know what's out there, they put on an annual convention that is a statewide sort of thing, and it's an amazing resource.
Absolutely.
And there's also local conventions that usually happen in the summers. So you can look in your area. I know if you're in the Hillsborough County area, there's an amazing one called TBHC, the Tampa Bay Homeschool Conference. But lots of local areas do that, and then you're right there with people actually in your own community. So if there's a class program that you encounter there, like, they're local to you. FPEA is statewide, but they provide, they're a great resource for information and purchasing curriculum and all kinds of things. So
absolutely.
I'm going to circle back to Matt Susan. I want to give a shout out to him. He is a forward-thinking school board member. He's always tried to figure out how to include home education in the mix and open up Brevard County for opportunities for homeschoolers. I think I'm right. I need to check this, or you need to check this, but they have an amazing program. If it's not Brevard, and I'm pretty sure it is, it's one of the neighboring counties. They have a hangar that they have built in their community to teach the skills for fabrication of airplanes and mechanics for airplanes. This is in their career and technical arena through Brevard County Schools. So, I mean, they're really, like I said, they're really very forward thinking. And this is a way that if students were interested in fabrication for airplanes or any of the other skills that they're taking, they can most likely get an industry certification. And those kids then become eligible for a Gold Seal. I just lost it.
Interesting.
It's a scholarship. It's a Gold Seal technical or something. I can't remember the name of it, because they have to have, I think it's 3 courses in a technical field to qualify.
I think it is Brevard. I was Googling it while you were I said, I think it is Brevard. I was Googling it while you were talking. Yeah.
That's really cool.
That's really cool.
It's really cool. And I'm just always amazed, and most of the efforts being made down there outside of the normal school, system is the result of Matt's forward thinking. They came to the Capitol. I met him probably 8 or 9 years ago. And then they came to Tallahassee with their, what are those things that you fly?
Drones?
Drones. They came with their drones.
I got you. All right.
So, just look into some of those programs. You don't have to go full time. You can do part time and take some of those courses. But, look at Florida Virtual too, because you don't even have to go to the school to take those courses. Some people like the in-person. Some people like the flexibility of Florida Virtual School. So there's just unbelievable opportunities for parents in the state of Florida that probably they don't have in other states. So,
and Julie says that Matt Susan spoke very highly of you, as he should, is what she says. And I think I hear you speak highly of him. That's excellent as well. It's interesting because I think that that's happening down in Brevard, but a lot of people don't necessarily make the connection to you and the work that you and I have been doing, because we've been on the phones hammering this in the background. People are like, well, what do you do? What do you do when you're not lobbying during legislative session? And I'm like, I'm so glad you asked. Many things. There's so much. There's so much, in fact. And
well, one other thing to that point is last week I had a call to the Superintendents Association on an extracurricular activities issue. But in the process, we got into this about school districts not offering courses to PEP students because they don't know how to handle it. I said it's a win-win for the school districts and for the homeschoolers, because they get paid for the course. And if they choose not to, they're letting a funding source go. And they said that last week they had a meeting with the superintendents, with Step Up for Students executives, and they're really working to try to encourage all of the school districts to get on board with the PEP and become providers with Step Up. So
that's a huge thing they're working on. So if your reimbursements haven't been being processed fast enough, that's probably why there's a million irons in the fire.
But we really do appreciate those that are in those positions. In the school districts who are so friendly with homeschoolers and really trying to encourage the opportunities there. So we really do appreciate that.
Yes.
Awesome.
Clive Ricketts.
Speaking of, you and I talked before we got on here, we talked about elections. School board members are really important to know where they stand on issues. And many times school board members move up to the next level of political things, and eventually many of them become legislators. So check out what their stances are. It's an important position for your county. And there are 2 different school board associations in Florida, and one broke away from the traditional school board because they wanted to be more innovative and try to help students in general. So be sure you can Google them. I've been doing that on some of this Supreme Court justices that are on the ballot. And many of them are, by listening to forums where our newspaper does a forum here where they talk about it. You can find those and find where they stand on certain issues. So all of those other positions that are on the ballot this time are really, really important.
Clive says, Brenda, what are your thoughts on having at large member on school board to represent homeschoolers? I think he means having a member. Maybe it's just a typo. Brenda, what are your thoughts on having a member on the school board to represent homeschoolers?
Well, they can run for office and get on the school board. That's the best way for them to get on the school board. To have a designated person for home education would take a change in maybe the Constitution, because those offices are spelled out in the state constitution. So that would be very hard to do.
Okay. He also asks, as a follow-up, what are your thoughts on religious-based homeschool curriculum providers having issues with becoming step-up registered vendors, contacting you for assistance in resolving those issues?
Crystal, why don't you take that question?
I think right now I don't think Step Up is adding a lot of new vendors, period, right now. So I'm starting with that because From my experience of actually being in the scholar shop where people are selling curriculum, there are religious curriculums in there. I don't think Step Up is trying to be biased against religious curriculum in any way. I think that they might just kind of be not adding a lot of new vendors right now. So that would be a Step Up question, I would think, to have them continue to contact and follow up with customer service. I know I've heard of some people some businesses requesting to be added and being told that they're basically being put on a wait list and that they're adding vendors by demand, meaning if enough parents request a certain vendor, they'll prioritize that one. So
you're talking about being added to the scholar shop.
Yeah, though. Because he said for curriculum providers, they're selling.
But they can still purchase it and get reimbursed.
Yes.
Correct. Yeah. As a curriculum, it can already be purchased and reimbursed.
Yes, but if they're wanting to be like a direct purchase in the shop,
right. Yeah.
Your best bet is going to be to get parents who want to see that vendor added to the shop to submit a request to add the vendor. They have a form on StepUp's website on their vendor page. Like, you can go into the list of vendors and there's a link to click to request a vendor. If enough parents request the same one, they'll probably prioritize adding that new vendor to the shop.
So his question was, what are your thoughts on those who are having issues contacting you for assistance in resolving those issues? That was the question.
Well, I guess my response to that is that we don't have control over who Step Up adds to the shop. Yeah. So that's why I'm kind of making some other suggestions of how to kind of get that escalated. If there's a vendor you're wanting to see added, your best bet is going to be to rally other parents who also want to see it added and use that request vendor feature on their site.
And let me say this from past experience. I'm not sure I'm current on this, but one of the problems is some of the curriculum vendors don't want to be on the platform. They don't want to wait on payments. And so it may be they don't agree, but that all has to be worked out with Step Up and how the mechanism is for them to pay. So there has to be agreement on both sides.
He has a follow-up, and he says, if they have questions regarding policies and statutes, can they contact you as well? Certainly. We're not attorneys, but we're deep in the weeds on a lot of the statutes. And Brenda's very knowledgeable on those. We'll answer questions as best we can, to highlight any kind of opportunities that they might be looking for or how to access things like that. We can, by all means, by nature of where we're at and what we're focused on with lobbying, we have a lot of information to be able to offer that's useful. So you can encourage them to contact us.
I do just want to reiterate, though, what Brenda said, which is if it's just a curriculum, they cannot reject your curriculum reimbursement. You have the freedom to choose what curriculum you want and submit it for reimbursement, even if it's not in the shop, because they are not allowed to pick and choose what curriculum they reimburse for you.
So I would say that if they're effective at marketing, right? Yep, it is. And if they're effective at marketing and they're able to get a footprint here and get into the know with families, I think that there are some communities that are more heavily saturated with homeschoolers than others. I think Hillsborough County, this is free marketing advice, so if you want to share this stream with them, they'll probably find it immensely helpful. But Hillsborough County has the highest concentration of saturation of homeschoolers as a county in the country. So if they're looking for a place to start, if they're looking to market or advertise or kind of get their curriculum out there, they have a better chance of starting somewhere like that. That's all the free marketing advice I'm giving today. Great questions, though. These are all great questions, and thank you. Tracy says the sound in the video is not synced. On my end, it's synced, but on your end, it might not be. And that sometimes there's an issue with Facebook as a client and how the videos are. It's a codec thing, so bear with it. I think sometimes it'll catch up, but hopefully you don't get the old Chinese black and white movie Godzilla treatment the whole time. So that's frustrating. So, all right, good. We answered that one and marked that one off. I don't see any other new questions as of right now. So back to some of those external things that we're doing. I did list. I don't know how you want to say it. Attend or listen in on the FHSAA. That's the Florida High School Athletics Association's Representative Assembly today, where they talk about and market at FPEA. That's a good one, Tracy. That's correct. Yes. Get a vendor booth at FPEA and market there. You're absolutely correct. The FHSAA Representative Assembly is where they look at bylaw changes. Today, at least, that's what they were looking at, some of the bylaw changes. They weren't really pertaining to home education or homeschoolers or PEP students at all. They were just minor little changes. One of them was a grammatical change. They left out the word "the," which wasn't clarifying, so they all had to vote to put the word "the" back in, which is that gives you a great insight into kind of how everything works, that even to make the word "the" as a grammatical error put back in as a solution, they had to have a vote on. So that's just kind of that's how it works. Even something like that is how it works. So it's a process, and there's a lot that goes on to it. But this particular assembly didn't really have anything to do with homeschoolers as an affect. One of them was the definition of participation as it relates to transfer students transferring from one school to another and then still being able to participate, and what defined if they were participating in sports at the previous school and then transferring to the new school, they wouldn't be able to participate at the sports in the new school. So they had to really hammer down what the definition of that meant.
But that one would affect homeschoolers. Yeah, because a homeschooler could start at one school and want to play a sport at another school. So that's during the year as a transfer.
But it was in relation to the EL-16 form, which homeschoolers don't have to fill out. So it's not it didn't really apply to homeschoolers.
Well, you went to the meeting last month. You heard the discussion.
That's right.
So I wanted to bring that up. So there you go. That's a good point.
Yeah.
You vetted all of these things prior to coming to the Legislative Assembly, and because you sit on the Public Liaison Advisory Committee as a representative of homeschooling, you would have had an opportunity at that point to hear the discussion and decide if it affected home educators or not.
Right.
So all of these different things that you have to attend now are all a way of protecting homeschoolers, and people don't realize how many ways that we're, aside from the legislature, spending time and working on these things. So
on policies that protect. Yeah, and there was a conversation. I don't know that it'll amount to anything at the moment, but there was a conversation during the PLAC meeting that I was in on, where we were best of intentions sometimes have bad overall effects, and so some of the questions were centering around how to, as parents are going to participate more in the expansion of school choice, opening up what kinds of conversations parents can have with coaches, because right now it's very, very minimal and very highly restricted what kind of conversations they can have, because there's policies and rules against recruiting and or poaching students from other schools. So you're not able to kind of pitch and sell your athletic program to them. And
there's severe penalties to the coaches.
There's very severe penalties to the coaches. Yeah. And so there was talk about, relaxing some of those as things change and, stuff like that. And I think that sometimes people have good ideas, and those good ideas just really need to be discussed until ad nauseum, perhaps, because they create unintended consequences. And once it gets in place, you have to vote on putting the word "the" back in or taking it out, right? So, we want to make sure it's not quite as bad as a constitutional amendment, but we just want to make sure that we're watching.
It's more like the legislative process.
Yeah, actually, it is. It's like another legislative body over athletics, to be truthful. So, well, we've talked about a lot so far. I just want to say thank you again to you, Brenda, for all the hard work I know you've been putting in. It's definitely not lost on me, and I love being able to kind of hash out some of these other things that are going on, because I don't think a lot of people know just how much happens behind the scenes, or has happened behind the scenes over the last 40 years. So that whenever we ask them for $5 a month in support, like it's really not, by comparison, a lot. If it's going to break your bank, then please don't do it. But I think that, seeing families across Florida support the work that you and I do, especially the work that you've been doing over the last 40 years, is immense. And it's not too heavy of an ask. A cup of coffee a month as a subscription tier should be kind of easy. And if you would allow us to spring for that new pumpkin latte that's at Dunkin' Donuts, then maybe the $10 a month would buy a little bit of joy.
Right.
Do you want to give people a laugh today and tell them what happened when we went to get pumpkin lattes the other day?
Oh, you can.
Okay. So this has nothing to do with the topic of conversation, but if it's a really mundane Monday for you and you need a laugh, this might do it.
Yeah.
So we were out running errands the other day, and Jason decided that he wanted to swing through and get pumpkin spice lattes. So we pulled up to the drive-through speaker.
Thinking of my wife, because that's what she loves.
But he also wanted one.
Yes,
and so we pulled up to the drive-through speaker, and he ordered pumpkin spice lattes, and the guy said, "We're out of pumpkin." To which Jason said, "No, you are not." And then there was like this awkward silence. And then Jason is like, "Well, fine. Fine. You're just ruined my whole day. You have totally just sucked the joy out of my entire life. Congratulations." And we could hear through the speaker
I hope you're okay
laughing in the background.
Yeah,
but,
you're working.
Yeah, it was his initial reaction though was like literally a shrieking. I don't want to do it on the live stream, but it was like, "No, you are not."
Yeah, I kind of yelled at him, "No, you are not."
Yeah. And it made them laugh. It made the drive-thru people laugh, but I think they might have thought he was serious. But it still made them laugh.
They laughed.
So we drove away.
Well, it was really false advertising.
Yeah, it had a huge sign that said "Pumpkin is back."
Yeah.
And then
it's supposed to be back. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. I hope you can live with yourself after sucking the joy out of my life like this. Like, I hope you're proud of yourself. Oh man. Yeah, that was fun. It is the season for that. But anywho, there are moments of joy, and sometimes coffee is a good moment of joy. And if you are interested in supporting the work that we do, that lowest tier, at the very least, is a great way to come arm in arm with us and show us that support. It might buy a pumpkin latte if they have it in stock. And sometimes that goes a long way into just helping us take a deep breath and deal with some of the, craziness that's out there. All right. And speaking of craziness that's out there, I think something that's very important, I don't want to get into the weeds on telling people who to vote for. The election is coming up and choices are being made. I had this conversation with a young man at the convenience store, and I asked him if he was voting in the upcoming election. And he said, "No, I don't really get into politics. It's too toxic." And I said, "Well, that's a shame, because that's where all the decisions about how you live your life are made. And from that, you get to decide on what's left over for you." So... and he was like, "That's a valid point." And maybe he'll vote. Maybe he'll read. But it's important. I think one of the experiences that I've had this year at the legislative sessions with the senators and the representatives has shown me that, one, some people are brave enough to vote their conscience. It doesn't mean that that's going to make their career. It might actually end it. Because in this party system that we have, if you don't vote the way your team tells you to vote, sometimes you're off the team. We appreciate those people. Mike Beltran is definitely that man. He's going to stand out in my mind from our first session as that one lone guy who was willing to put his hand up at the moment we needed him to put his hand up. And it got enough attention that even the Speaker of the House ended up coming back and speaking with us, and we got what we needed out of that whole session. So I'm not saying it was all due to him, but we definitely need people who are conscience driven and not party driven. So I urge you to look beyond your party and look at their policies, find their websites, give them a call. Their teams, each of them have like a campaigning team, and you can ask them questions and go walk. We walked with one of the senators that's here that I don't agree with him on everything, but I agree with him on quite a few things, and those things are the important things to me. And so, we walked to help support him, and we made an impact. I think there were a couple of people that said they weren't going to vote, and then they talked to us, and they were like, you know what, I think this is important, and they decided to vote. And seeing us do that has helped some of our other homeschool friends up here be more active, and they were interested but didn't quite know where to get involved, and so they kind of just followed us into some of those places and arenas. And all of those feet seem like they don't necessarily, your feet alone might seem like they might not carve the path, but once everyone treads behind you or with you, you can make that path worn, and you can encourage people. So, and you can be remembered, and that's one of the most important things, is whenever whoever it is that is elected in your senator or representative's seat, when it comes time, because there are things that we're going to argue over this coming session. I know there are. I already probably know what they are too. And when they come, we're going to need people who are familiar with their candidates to talk and talk to them, or get us a conversation where they say, hey, you remember me, these are our people who help us with our homeschooling things. Listen to them. They know what we want, and you can create that bridge for us. And it becomes important to them to slow down and listen to us.
And there are people who have done that for us this past legislative season.
You got to speak up.
I said there are people who have done that for us this past legislative season. We had some of our community, the HEF community, reach out and say, hey, I personally know this representative. Do you want me to put you in contact with her? Like, that was so helpful, because it gave us an opportunity to voice our concerns to someone that we may not have had an opportunity with before that. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we're immensely grateful for that, for each of you. I'm not going to name names. I don't want to leave anyone out, but I don't want to tip off who you are, because you may not want that to be known. So I'm just going to say thank you and look deeply into the camera as I do.
And it gives us more credibility coming from you, and they will make way for us to have an appointment or a phone call.
That's right.
That maybe if we're just another lobbyist, they wouldn't take the time to do it. So our community that gets involved in elections I can't say how important they are. It's just really amazing.
I was
going to say, just give an example, and I may have given this before, so forgive me, but one of the families down in South Florida in Palm Beach County worked really, really, really hard for one of the candidates in the House. And it was a big issue. I don't remember now. I'll have to go back and look at my notes. But whatever it was, I needed to talk to that representative because he was the majority leader in the House. I couldn't get in to see him. I sent notes in. They were on the floor. And so I called the family.
I said, know what that's like.
And so I called the family, and the parents said, well, you'll need to call their son because he's the one that worked almost as the campaign manager. And I did. And he said, now this is a homeschool student. He said, now, is this your one request? Because I can only ask for one. And I said, yes. And he said, okay. So he made a text or a call, however that worked, probably a text on the floor. And immediately, I mean, within the next 5 minutes, that legislator came out on the floor to talk, from the floor to talk to me. So that's how influential you can be in a local race. And sometimes when we can't get through, you can get through. So we need to know who you're working in their campaigns. And even if your candidate doesn't win, go immediately to the one who did win and introduce yourself as a homeschooler in their district and that you would be the contact person. I've had that happen with people before, and, it's a foot in the door. So it makes a difference. We can't know all, what are 160, 120 in the House and 40 in the Senate. We can't know them all, but you can help us know them all.
Yeah, and I was talking with a retired senator who a friend of mine introduced me to, and I was just wanting to pick his brain about the process and like what is important, anything I should know to navigate it. And one of the things that he said was eye-opening, and it was, that senator that you're having trouble getting to, it's not that he doesn't have time, it's that he doesn't have time for you, because you haven't done anything to help him. There's large donors and things like that, and he was right. I hadn't walked with this senator. Now I have walked with this senator, so maybe that will be different this upcoming one.
It will be different because it's easier for them to get money than ground troops.
Yeah, and so the impact that he left was, you need to do something. You need to participate. And that was the kind of like message that I got from him. It was like, because it's not that they don't have time, but their time is triaged based on the things that are important to them. And if you become important to them, then they'll listen to you. They'll make that time for you. So, doing that's important. Walk with them, participate, even if you don't agree. Like Brenda said, if you're the opponent wins and they're not the one that you agree with, but you connect with them and you help them in some way or another, and you become important to them, then that matters.
Well, let me just say that the state is divided up into districts to give certain parties the heavier weight in those districts. So maybe you would be a Republican, and the only people on the ballot that have the chance of winning is a Democrat. So you're living in a Democratic district. There may be a Republican running, and possibly that Republican can win, but you just need to know, what kind of chance the Republican has. And if there are two Democrats, a Democrat on the ballot that's pretty much going to win, and he agrees with most of what you agree with or the important issues, then, go walk for him. Doesn't hurt.
Absolutely.
Because you'll be going to Democratic houses that are going to vote Democrat anyway, but,
Yeah, and so I just think that as the upcoming election season is here, be mindful of the people that you're working with, and what their policies are, and the ones that you're in need of, and especially when you're voting and working with them and things like that. Know them, and I would say also then encourage you, if this is kind of your first time getting into this, it's now suddenly important to you because what happens to your children is important to you. Welcome. And then also, pay attention to our live stream through the legislative sessions, because that's we give out a lot of information during those moments, and file that away mentally or come back to the videos or share them, and that'll help. That can be very helpful, because some of the things that I've learned from people that we talked with, like I know what they said to me personally, and then I know how they voted on the floor, and I know what their closing comments were. So I got this big kind of overall big picture view of who they are and what they're doing and how the game is being played and things like that. So, all right. What else, Brenda? I think that is pretty much a wrap for today.
Go vote. I spent about a day over the weekend researching all the constitutional amendments and looking at videos of people to make my decision on who to vote for. And I had an idea in one race who I was going to vote for. And then when I listened to their interviews by the Democrats or the League of Women Voters that was hosting the debate, I went, oh, that person doesn't support my views. And so it takes some time, but it's going to affect you long range, because those people are going to be voting on issues that are important to you, and you really need to know where they stand. And I want to encourage you for the down ballot. Be sure you know where your school board members stand, and you know, taking Matt Sussin as an example, you know, can change things, and the climate toward homeschoolers in your district, which is really important, because some districts you think, well, they don't like homeschoolers, but when they have an attitude toward students, they're all students, and we need to make these available because taxpayers are paying for public schools.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And on that note, most counties have a sample ballot that you can view if you're not sure what's going to be on there and which candidates you need to be researching. Check with your county. They should have a sample ballot that will kind of give you an idea of who to look into, so you can go in.
Supervisor of elections.
Yep.
All right. Well, I think that wraps up today, unless there's anything else you need to add.
I don't think so.
All right, good. So I'm going to call us out toward the end here and say thank you to everyone who was listening. Thank you to everyone who was watching. Brenda, your thoughts on moving to homeschool-friendly districts?
Moving to them? That's a big move. Why don't we just try to make them more homeschool friendly?
Yeah, that's true. That's a good thought.
I think if the more homeschoolers get involved, the more districts in Florida we can make homeschool.
And I think that the more people that you can find that are, you know, I hate to say it this way, but start with your churches and start having discussions with people that you're around on a regular basis who might be taking for granted some of the options and opportunities that they have. And if they're interested in education and the education options, and if they're pro school choice, start broadening their minds to what that looks like. And co-ops are great. Start a home education instructional program, or find ways to be creative and grow the community around you to make it better. I think that's great. I think there's a lot of people who are pro school choice who are not necessarily knowing that you're there, right? Like when we were going to church, sometimes it'd be like, how are you? How are you? Good. We sit down, we do the thing, and then we leave. And like sometimes there's less engagement in some of the places that we go to, but there's lots and lots of people there, getting to know them, communicating with them, talking about these things that are important, kind of making that community is really, you know, Florida as a whole has good laws, right?
Get to know your superintendent. Go to events where he's going to be speaking. Introduce yourself. Let him know that you're a person in his district and that you care about all children's education, but you've chosen to teachers at home. And they're still getting money from taxpayers to support the public schools.
Tracy has an interesting comment. I thought
go ahead and read it.
I know in Miami-Dade, some of their anti-homeschooling policy comes from the school board attorney, which then trickles down to the school board, which then trickles down to the county administrators, which then is hindering to wannabe homeschoolers.
I made a trip to Miami, sat down and talked to school board members. I had to register as a lobbyist down there, but I've talked to multiple home education liaisons over the past years, and they came in with a bias. But once they met homeschoolers and learned that they really are educating their children, their whole relationship toward homeschoolers is different. Now, what a lot of them see are the failures. So that's what they envision. Nobody's doing anything at home. Their kids come back behind, and they don't meet the good ones. So you need to introduce yourself and help them understand what you are doing at home.
I think
firefighters put out fires, right?
Yeah.
They're not touring the beautiful homes.
I think a lot of people underestimate the impact that it really can have for them to just meet your children. We went to adopt a pet this weekend, and one of the things, so this shelter had some really weird rules where we were wanting to adopt more than one pet. And they were having a clear out the kennels event, and they were trying, but then they were putting limits on how many you can adopt at a time. So we were explaining to them, well, we have 4 kids, we're homeschooling, we're wanting them to learn responsibility. Each of them will be, you know, kind of, they're not that it's entirely one child's pet or whatever, but they're each going to have their own responsibilities. We're making sure they're going to care for the animals. And we were explaining this to the shelter, and they had to go get the manager to come out to talk to us because they ended up waiving the rule for us and letting us adopt more than one pet. But as we were signing the adoption paperwork, the lady actually commented, because we went without the kids the first time, and then we came back with the kids when we were picking up the pets. And even the lady there was commenting like, how old are your kids again? They were so well behaved and so smart and just so respectful. And I think people really underestimate the impact that it has for them to just meet and have a conversation with your kids and see that your kids are not being neglected and not lacking for education, right? You're doing an education, a quality education at home. They need to meet your kids and experience that. And that makes a massive difference.
It does. It really, really does. Makes a big difference. And that's also one of the kind of reasons why we have the Tell Your Story project, which I'll plug again. It's up there. Is that there are many people who don't know about homeschooling. A friend of mine was like, oh man, it's on the rise and it's like doubling in size. Like, yeah, but we're still 4% of the entire population. So 96% of everybody else that you come in contact with has no clue what it truly means to be a homeschooler. And if anything, they've only ever really dipped their toe into the topic. So they don't know much. They don't know what to expect. And that project will give you a chance to tell what homeschooling looks like for you, with or without a scholarship, and the impact that it's had for your family. And I would love to see so many stories, success stories, be told in the diversity of ways and the diversity of people and situations that we could touch, that it would really allow people to kind of get a glimpse into what it really is and what it really can be for them, so that we can work on that public perception a little bit, especially when it comes to legislating. So
we got to go because I think we have another call.
We do. All right. Well, I'll take us out. And thank you all for being with us. Thank you all for your time and attention. And thank you all for your support as well. We really appreciate everything that you do. Thank you to our top sponsors, Arataf, PEA, and Fisher Precious Metals, for being with us and making all of this possible. So especially thank you to you. And without further ado, we are out. Enjoy your Monday.